Hi everyone, welcome back. This is chapter 13 of the IT Fundamentals Plus FC0-U61 exam review. We're going through chapter by chapter of the total seminars all-in-one exam guide written by Scott Jernigan and Mike Myers. This chapter is, again, like chapter 12, a very short chapter, not a lot of information involved, but we'll go through all of it that you need to know. Dealing with chapter 13, IT troubleshooting. Our three main chapter objectives with this lesson is that we will learn how to approach IT problems using a standard troubleshooting methodology. We will troubleshoot common computer problems and also get help with your computer when needed. All right, so without further ado, we're going to go right into the troubleshooting methodology. Now, these 8 steps are very important for you to know, as well as the order of these 8 steps. The first one is identify the problem. So again, this is what we would do whenever you're troubleshooting a computer or a friend's computer or a coworker's computer. If there is something going on and they bring it to your attention, the first thing you need to do is identify the problem. And you can do that by what they say is happening, but I would also make sure that you are seeing that issue yourself, so you can see what the problem is and start from there. After that, you want to do some research. You want to figure out, okay, this is happening, which should not be happening, or this is not happening, which should be happening. Why is this the case? And sometimes the research can be just simply doing a Google search. Sometimes it's talking to a IT colleague who might have ran into this before. And sometimes it's just simply going back and thinking about other times that you've seen this issue happening. Then you establish a theory of probable cause. Okay, this is happening. Why is this happening? And trying to understand the root of it. It could be a lot of different issues that would go from it, but it's good to be able to think about what is the reason for this computer issue. Then you test the theory. So you have an idea of what's going on, so you test it and you see if you can cause this error to happen again. After that, you want to establish a plan of action. You want to come up with a plan of what you are going to do to fix this problem. We're going to be trying this next. Now we're going to be trying this next. So come up with a plan of what you want to do to try to fix this issue. And then you implement or escalate. Now, what we mean by that is that you then put that plan of action into action and you try to make it work to see if that solves the problem. If you've tried and exhausted all of your options that you are wanting to try and it still doesn't work, you will then escalate it to someone else who might know a little bit better of the computers and the issue at hand. If everything's working, then you would go to step 7, which is verify functionality. You would want to make sure that everything's working the way that it's supposed to be working and that issue is not happening again. And once everything seems to be fixed, then you want to document the solution. And I would recommend that you write this down, or you make a little log on your computer about what you've done. Here's the issue and here's what I did to fix it. So that way, if it happens again down the road, you will remember what you did in order to fix that issue. So we're going to go into some common computer problems that you might see from time to time and talk about what are some major ones that we will see, some common ones, and then how do we fix those. So the things that we're going to be talking about are what happens when there's no power coming to a computer, what happens when there's physical damage, if your OS fails to boot or fails to load, an application failing to load within your phone or your tablet or your desktop, laptop, and what happens when you have irregularly performing peripherals. So the first one is the no power. If there is no power, again, it could be a battery issue. Your computer might be sleeping or hibernating. You might not have any power coming to your computer, or maybe there's some connectivity issues. So you want to make sure you ensure that your device does have power. Make sure that you check all connections going into your laptop or to your desktop. Make sure your power supply is plugged into an outlet. You also want to make sure the surge suppressor that it should be plugged into to protect it is turned on. And there is a little on-off switch off to the side that'll help you to be able to know whether the light's on or light's off. One thing that you can do is you can kind of clear Clear out the memory by pressing and holding the power button for 5 to 10 seconds, and then when you release and press again, does the computer then boot on? And sometimes it needs to have a quick flush of the system, and this will allow you to do that. If it's a smartphone, try to do a soft reset. Do the same thing. Hold down your power button for 5 to 10 seconds, and then try it again to see if it comes back on. For the issue of physical damage, really it depends on the type of damage that we're talking about. This is really not usually a serious issue with a desktop PC. They are built to withstand a little bit of jarring and a little bit of dropping and a little bit of some physical damage that could happen. You've got such a big space inside of a tower that it's typically not going to do anything. However, it might. However, with portables and tablets and mobile devices, that could be very, very detrimental to the system if there is some sort of physical damage. So let's start with water. If our device is wet, and we're talking mostly about a tablet or a laptop or a phone, we actually do not want to turn it on. When you turn it on, you are trying to make these pieces inside work, and if they are wet, that could actually short circuit the pieces without even knowing that you did that. So do not turn it on. If you can, take it apart and wait for all the pieces to air dry. If we're talking about a phone, see if there's any places that you can open up to let the air go inside and circulate and dry out all of those pieces first. If you can, let air dry for about 72 hours, that would be 3 days. And if it's a smaller device, feel free to place it into a bag of rice, and that rice will absorb the water, but again, you don't want to turn it on for 72 hours. Now, what about a cracked display? Really, there's a couple different ways that it could be harmful to your computer, or excuse me, to your phone or to your tablet. If your display panel updates properly, then all you need is just a glass replacement. However, if there are pixels that are not showing up on your phone, it's more serious than that. You'll want to make sure you contact a repair shop either way. But if the pixels are done, you probably will not be able to get those replaced without serious money costs. You might want to just get a new phone if a lot of pixels are cracked and replaced and the phone is unusable. But if the display panels updates properly, it's just the glass, you can get that replaced for minimal cost, but I would recommend going to a repair shop that specializes in repairing the specific device. The last thing is what happens if you drop your device. Again, if it's a desktop or a laptop, if you can, open the case, just make sure all of the things are plugged in where they need to go. If it's a phone though, again, I recommend you take it to a specialist to open the phone and check. Sometimes when you do open a phone by yourself and you're still under warranty, that will void the warranty. So you just have to be careful about those things. The next issue is what happens when your device does not start up normally. You need to ask yourself a few questions. The first question is, has anything changed recently? Have you installed any new programs or new software? Have you moved the computer from one location to the next? Have you done any kind of Windows update or patches to your computer? All of these things sometimes can affect your computer because if you move them, maybe you forgot to plug something in, or maybe the port doesn't work, or maybe the outlet doesn't work. If you have installed new software or new updates, maybe you accidentally installed something that harmed your computer. So it's just important to make sure you ask yourself, has anything changed since the last time when it worked normally? The next thing is you do want to reboot your computer. Maybe it just won't start right, so feel free to turn it off. And if it's starting kind of weirdly, so turn it off and then reboot it, and sometimes that will flush out the issue and everything will be good. If it still is not working, in Windows you can use something called System Restore. System Restore are basically these restore points that your computer automatically saves when system changes happen to your computer, and it will keep a log of these System Restore points. And you can go into System Restore from your control panel, you can choose a time for when things were working great, and you can restore your system back to this point. Now it is completely reversible, so if you don't like what it did, you can always go back to where you were, which is totally fine, but you are trying to make it become a point where things are working fine. If your operating system won't start, if you can't even get into System Restore, By the way, in a Mac computer, that would be called Time Machine. That allows you to go back to a specific point. If System Restore is not helping or you can't get into it, you might have to boot your computer into recovery or troubleshooting mode, which within every operating system, it has its own little repair option that'll go in and look at the operating system and repair maybe something that was not working correctly. And when you do this, you might have to boot from the original OS removable installation media if they gave you one. Or you might have to re-download it, but the problem is you can't get into your OS to do that. So feel free to go into your recovery troubleshooting mode, and typically as your OS starts up, it will tell you to hit a certain function button to go into the recovery troubleshooting mode, so that way you can choose repair. Another issue is where a certain app won't install or run. Now, whether this is on your computer or mostly probably on a tablet and a phone, if that happens, you do want to run Windows Update and check for any updated drivers. Maybe there's something new out there that you've never downloaded yet, and that's the issue why it won't install or run properly. You can either go to Windows Update, or one of the things that CompTIA really focuses on is making sure that you go to the manufacturer's website. You always want to check the manufacturer's website for any kind of update or patch to download. Don't go to patchesrus.com. It might not be the most appropriate place that you need to check. So go to whoever's created the software or created the machine, go to that manufacturer's website and look for new downloads or new patches. One thing you can always do is uninstall and reinstall the application. I often do this with a phone. If my app is not working properly, I will completely uninstall it and reinstall it, and sometimes that does work. And then you can also use compatibility mode to see if that runs better. Some software doesn't work on certain OSs, so if you do compatibility mode, it will kind of change itself so it will work on a newer OS or an older OS. Another issue is that the apps run, but they sometimes freeze up. And so we've got a couple options of what we want to do to really kill the app or to stop it from working. In Windows, you would go to Task Manager by hitting Control-Alt-Delete, and then you would find the task that you want to kill and you would click on End Task. On a Mac OS, you can go to the Apple menu and click and choose Force Quit. From Linux, you will have to go to a command line box. You would type in PS command. You would find the process identifier, which is called the PID, that you were wanting to get rid of. And then you would type in on the command line, you would type in kill, -9, less than symbol, the PID number, and then right, and then greater than symbol. And then that will kill it from that system. On an Android phone, you can go into settings and then apps. You would select the app that you are wanting to get rid of and tap force stop. And then on an iOS phone, you can go to the left edge of your screen, move your finger to the center, swipe the app card up and off the screen. And that's a way that you can kill the app on an iOS phone. The next problem is that our peripherals won't work. Remember, peripherals is just a fancy word for things plugged into your computer, such as a mouse or a keyboard or any other extra device that you're trying to make work. If that peripheral won't work, again, there's a few things you should go through. First thing is always, always, always check the cable, check the cords, make sure everything's plugged in like it should be into a really nice tight connection. If that peripheral has a power supply, make sure you're checking that that's plugged in or that the battery is actually working properly. For those people that use a wireless mouse, sometimes it doesn't work because your battery's dead, or because the little on-off button on the bottom of it is not turned on. So do make sure that everything's turned on or that your battery is charged and working properly. Sometimes the outlet, the cord, the device, or the port may be defective. And you can go through some process of elimination to see, okay, it doesn't work here, does it work on a different port? And if it doesn't, it's something within the actual element itself or the cord. So you can try to swap things out and see if you can decide which one is working and which one is not. Do want to check for updated drivers, and you can uninstall and reinstall the drivers for that particular peripheral. Sometimes that will help as well. Or you can try a different outlet, a cord, or a port. Do check your device manager. That will usually tell you if things are working properly or not. You can also look at the manual of that particular peripheral. Maybe that will give you some troubleshooting tips. And then as always, you can Google this problem. Just make sure that you're going to a trusted source when you Google it, but check online forums and see if other people had an issue and what they did to fix it. So the next section of this chapter is called Getting Help. And whenever you need some extra help, that you tried some troubleshooting methods and it still didn't work, what should you do? CompTIA is very much old school about this, but they ask that one of the main things that they want you to do is check the manufacturer documentation. When you bought a computer or the operating system or a peripheral or whatever it is that you're having problems with, look at the paperwork that came with it. The pro of this is that it is the best source for finding information and troubleshooting. However, the con of this is that the manual can be very minimal now because everything is now online, or it could be easily misplaced and you don't know where it's at. Another thing that you can do if you don't have the documentation or if you want more information is you can go to the manufacturer website. The pro of this is that there is a plethora of information at your fingertips, including manuals and updates and contact information and sometimes even technical support. The con, though, is that if your problem is you don't have internet, you can't go to the manufacturer website because you don't have internet. So you must have internet access to obtain this information. Again, on the website, you might have, as I mentioned, some documentation. There might be like a little chat room that you could go to. They talk about the warranty. They also have FAQs and tech support. I want to make sure we understand what that is. FAQs stands for Frequently Asked Questions. This is a section of the website where frequently asked questions can be found and answered. So odds are the problem that you're having is probably a very common problem, and this could be under the FAQ section for you to see what other people did for this exact same issue. Some websites do have a Contact Us section. It is a section containing maybe an online form, an email address, a phone number, or even online chat availability. It's some way that that manufacturer wants you to contact them. Many times their phone numbers will not easily be found, though, because they would then have to supply people to answer those calls, and sometimes you can do it much better with a chat session or with an FAQ or some sort of online forum. That's better. Now, I also want to make sure we understand the difference between a customer service and technical support. Tech support provides help for operating the product. So if you're having issues with the actual product, you would call tech support, or you would contact tech support. However, for customer service, that actually has nothing to do with the product itself. Customer service allows you to create an account, to place or cancel an order, or possibly get refunds if that was the case. So it's all about kind of the business side of it, which helps the money come in and out of that company. But tech support is all about helping because there's an issue with the actual product. So make sure you know the difference between those two things. As I mentioned, tech support sometimes could be used on the phone. There could be an automated assistance, which means you just talk to a machine the entire time and put in your different options, or they could call you back. All right, and the last thing we're going to talk about in this chapter is internet searches and community groups. Another way that you can also get some help with an issue that you're having with is, again, just simply Google it. That is not a cop-out. That is not, frowned upon in the tech world. That's actually really, really a great idea. Google is out there and there's a lot of information on the internet. So Google's your friend. Feel free to search the internet for your issue. Just be cautious because not everything can be trusted, but just know that you're not alone with this problem. Odds are if you're having the problem, someone else in the world has had this problem too. If you do receive an error message, make sure you type in the error message exactly. If it says error code 49A64B, type that in exactly and see what shows up, because sometimes the error code will be explained and a solution will come to light. Do be careful with internet suggested fixes. Just because it says to do this doesn't mean it's always going to be the smartest thing to do. So use some common sense and Google that too and see if other people tried it and if made it work. Sometimes I found that a fix is recommended, but then when I Googled that fix, a lot of other people said don't do that because this ended up happening and the cure was worse than the problem. Uh, you can always explore online forums devoted to computer issues and solutions. You could find this on Reddit, or you can find this on other computer technology forums where you could possibly see the solution to your issue you're having. And if you're nerdy enough and they have this in your local area, you could always attend a local community group for computer technicians to discuss your issue and see if they have any answers as well. All right, so that is it for chapter 13. Again, not a lot of information here, but a lot of the common problems that you could possibly see and common fixes. And honestly, probably 90%, if you're going to become an IT troubleshooter, 90% of the issues that people have are some of these common problems we just talked about. So knowing what you can do when these happen is the best thing. And then, if you need to elevate it or research a little bit more for the other 10%, that's really going to be helpful. All right, as always, let's go through some questions for Chapter 3 review and see how well you understood what we talked about. Feel free to go back through and look at the video that we just created to see if that also, if you need a review over anything before we start. As always, you can pause the video and try to answer the question yourself before I reveal the answer. Number 1, which of these could not be the cause of a computer appearing completely dead? Key word here is not. Which of these could not be the cause of a computer appearing completely dead? A, hibernate mode. B, bad power cable. C, disconnected power cable. D, bad keyboard. All of these could cause the computer to appear completely dead, with the exception of a bad keyboard. That is not going to make your computer stop working. You won't be able to type, but your computer will look fine. Everything else will be bad. Number 2, which of these is the most hazardous to a desktop computer or mobile device? A, dropping it. B, leaving it in a hot car in the summer. C, getting it wet. D, leaving it in an unheated building in winter. Not a lot of these are great options, but the most hazardous, the one that you could immediately have a problem with if this were to happen, is getting it wet. We talked about the two main enemies of technology was heat and moisture, or heat and wetness. Heat, again, it could still be okay with a little bit of heat, but getting it wet immediately could be very bad for it. So that's the most hazardous to a computer, desktop computer or mobile device, getting it wet. Number 3, what Windows utility returns the computer system files to previously saved versions? A, control panel. B, compatibility mode. C, file explorer. D, system restore. The one allows you to go back and restore previously saved versions is exactly what I just talked about. This is system restore. Just keep in mind, if it said Mac up here or Apple, we would be looking for time machine, but Windows is system restore. Number 4, which of these might correct a problem with an application not running correctly? A, delete your data files. B, clean the display screen. C, uninstall and reinstall the application. D, create a shortcut to the application on the desktop. The one that would best correct a problem with an app not running correctly is uninstall and reinstall the application. That sometimes will get the kinks out of it and download a brand new updated version that you want that works better. Number 5, suppose you have a wireless mouse that doesn't work at all. Which of these is not likely to be the cause? A, mouse is dirty. B, power switch on mouse is turned off. C, transceiver is not connected to the computer. D, batteries are dead. The ones that, all of these could make a wireless mouse not work, except for one, and that exception is that you just simply have a dirty mouse. A dirty mouse can still be a working mouse. It just might not be able to move as smooth or as best, but all the others are worse than that. Power switch is turned off, definitely not going to work. Transceiver is not connected. Remember, when you have a wireless peripheral, you do have to plug in some sort of transceiver into the USB nearby, so that way the wireless mouse knows which computer to control. So if the transceiver is not connected, it will not work, and your batteries are dead will also not work. Number 6, you have a printer that connects to your computer via USB cable. The printer can print a test page successfully from its own controls, but the computer doesn't see it. Which of these should you try? A, use a different printer cable. B, replace the ink cartridge. C, turn the printer off and then back on again. D, use a different kind of paper in the printer. So this is kind of a tricky question, but if you think about it, the reason that your computer does not recognize the printer is odds are there's some sort of communication error between the computer and the printer itself. So one of the things that we should try right away is using a different printer cable. The cable is what sends the data from the computer to the printer so the printer knows what to print. Replacing the ink cartridges will not change this. Turning the printer off and back on again is actually a viable option, but that's probably not the first thing that's going to be happening. I would change out the different printer cable first, and then then you might need to reset the printer once you do that. Number 7, which is the most authoritative source of information about a device? A, friends and relatives. B, internet search. C, community user groups. D, manufacturer's website. All of these are great things. All of these could help you in some sort of capacity, but the most authoritative source of information would be the manufacturer's website. Whoever created the device is going to have the most information on their website. Number 8, what is an FAQ? A, the main page of a manufacturer's support website. B, the website page containing frequently asked questions and their answers. C, an index of all help topics on a website. D, a utility that identifies your product's model number. FAQ, remember, stands for frequently asked questions, so it is B. Number 9, if you need to cancel an online subscription, what department of the company do you need to contact? A, customer service. B, technical support. C, service. D, sales. To deal with the subscription or to deal with the financial or business side of a company, you would never contact technical support. That is about the product itself. You would contact customer service. And finally, number 10, which of these would likely be found on a manufacturer's support website? A, downloadable product manuals. B, new versions of the device's drivers. C, troubleshooting information. D, all of the above. On your manufacturer's website, it has a plethora, it has a lot of information, really anything that you could look for, and so the answer here would be D, everything above there and even more than that. All right, that's it for Chapter 13. Feel free to go back and review anything that you need to dealing with common IT troubleshooting methodology as well as the common problems and their solutions. Again, don't forget about your 8-step, the 8-step methodology steps that you want to look at. Make sure you know each of those, the order of each of those, and what you would do under each of those. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to put them down below. I'm happy to answer anything that you put. And as always, we will rejoin for Chapter 14. We only have 2 more chapters left in this series before you continue to review and are one step closer to taking your U61 ITF plus CompTIA exam. As always, let me know what you need, and we will see you next time. Keep on keeping on.